What's up, my friends in film fandom, wherever you may be and however you may be watching? Thank you so much for giving us just a little bit of your time. Boy, Dracula, what a great character for all films, all horror. So many different angles you can approach this from. And I gotta be honest, I don't think I've ever quite seen it approached from this point of view. At least not quite from this point of view. And of course, with the great Nick Kim Coppola, also known as Nicolas Cage. Here to talk about this fun movie with me tonight is the Shape of Lone Star State, the man who is all he wants is just a little bit of blood of the innocent. That's all he wants. That's all he wants. My man Tex, what's up, man?
You know, people die every day. What's wrong with doing it in some cool ways? That's all I'm asking for here. Slice a few throats, do what you got to do. I mean, there is no cure for the cage rage. I mean, you know that, right, Frank? I mean, cage rage is incurable. It is forever. It will keep him alive. So, all hell Nick Cage. What's up, y'all?
All he asks for is the blood of the innocent. Is that too much to ask?
It is Christmas time, so, give unto others as that whole thing. So, the innocent. Is anybody innocent? Let's be honest. We've all done something. Let's just tell the truth here. But, it's all good.
Yeah, but sorry for the hastily thrown together stream. It's been very busy for me at work, and it's been a struggle to get home and get these streams put together, but managed to get this one put together for tonight. Jeremy not with us tonight. He's actually got some stuff going on. He said he's just tired, not feeling very well, so he sent this one out, but that's okay. We'll have him back for the next one, I'm sure. But let's see. The movie we are here to talk about is, of course, Renfield. It is the 2023 American action comedy horror film directed and produced by Chris McKay and written by Ryan Ridley from a story by Robert Kirkman, who also serves as a producer. Inspired by the characters from the 1897 novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. The film stars Nicholas Hoult, Awkwafina, Ben Schwartz, and of course the great Nicolas Cage as the Dark One himself. The film tells the story of the character Renfield from the Dracula universe. The film entered developmental hell after the commercial failure of The Mummy in 2017, but Kirkman later pitched a new version of the film, leaning more into the comedy aspects of the story, and the production rights were acquired by Skybound Entertainment. Renfield had its world premiere at the Overlook Film Festival on March 30th of 2023 and was released in the United States on April 14th of that year by Universal Pictures. The film received mixed reviews from critics who praised the comedic tone and performances but criticized the screenplay and story. It grossed $26.7 million worldwide against its budget of $65 million, making it a financial box office flop. However, on the review agitator website Rotten Tomatoes, 58% of 300 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 5.8 out of 10, with the website's consensus review reading, quote, although it fails to take full advantage of its committed stars and killer premise, Renfield's baddie horror comedy blend sinks just enough to leave an impression. Kind of a bit of a middling review for what I thought was a very entertaining movie. I didn't know what to expect going into this. Tex, quick paragraph before we dive into the spoiler stuff. What did you think of Renfield as a whole? You're muted right now. Unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I didn't know I was muted. I said I didn't realize that I needed Nick Cage as Dracula as bad as I did until I saw it. Now I need like 10 more films of him as Dracula because we did not get enough of this movie. It's, it's kind of a mixed bag. There's things that I love and there's things that make me want to fall asleep. So obviously we'll delve into it within this review, but it's one you need to see.
Yeah, for me, it's the typical horror comedy stuff, and horror comedy, it's a tough one because it kind of works when it's properly balanced. You need to either go full blown comedy and just make it a ridiculous movie and just with a lot of blood and not even really emphasize the horror, or it needs to be about 65% horror and you got to emphasize the horror because the horror to me is the better genre of film. But this one, I think it's kind of the opposite. It's like 65% comedy and a lot of really stupid. A lot of stupid comedic blood. The gore wasn't quite what I wanted it to be, but it was kind of cartoonish and goofy, which went along with the basic premise and the kind of tone of the entire film. The whole thing was pretty much a comedy. I don't even know if I want to call it a horror comedy. I would call it just a comedy based around this Dracula character and one of his and the Renfield character. But I mean, it worked out great for me, not because the movie itself was good, but I think the cast was just right. You know, there was so much. I mean, Awkwafina's funny. I love her in Shang-Chi. One of the best parts about that movie was Awkwafina. She's been funny in a lot of stuff. She's got another movie out right now that I want to watch called Quiz Show, which is another comedy which looks absolutely hilarious. But yeah, I mean, it was one of the, like I said, usually I want my horror comedies to be more horror and a little bit less comedy. But this was the other way around, and it worked really well for the story. It didn't take itself seriously. It didn't try to be one of the great Dracula tales. It was just like Dracula's a character in this goofy fucking movie. So we're just gonna have fun with it. But you know, let's dig into the cast first. I mean, for one, you got Nicolas Cage. I mean, he's Nicolas Cage. There's not a whole lot this guy has ever done wrong. It's really nice to see this guy's career kind of make a little bit of a little bit of a comeback, because he was kind of middling for a while, a lot of direct-to-video kind of silly stuff. But you know, and then you factor in guys like Nicholas Hoult, he's quite good in this. I find him very entertaining. I know he does a lot of this comedic stuff, but what gets lost in the fact is that he actually has some good stage presence. And then, of course, like I said earlier, Awkwafina, who I think is just hilarious. I don't know, Tex, what did you think about the cast overall, and who stood out to you?
Well, just from those main three that you covered. Sorry, my dog's trying to chew me to death right now. It's doing its best Renfield impression, or its best Dracula impression. Obviously, Nick Cage. I mean, 10 out of 10 stars. The dude nails it as Dracula. He was born to play this role. Nicholas Hoult, he plays the Renfield role well. You know, he's just vulnerable enough at times when he needs to be, but when he goes into like John Wick mode, he's believable. Now, I do have to disagree with you on the Awkwafina part. I cannot stand this woman. She is the biggest, her and the father storyline, which we'll get into later. That's the biggest drawback for this movie for me. If we had gotten less her and more of the other two, I think it would have been even better. But, you know, it was a main part of the story, and she was there. So that's really my only dislike is her, honestly. But I just really wasn't a fan.
Yeah, for one, you know, like I said, Nicolas Cage, he's Nicolas Cage. I mean, even when he doesn't do a very good job, he's still pretty damn good. Nicholas Hoult, when he goes John Wick mode, I mean, he's already kind of done this before. We know he can do it. He's been Beast in the X-Men movies, so it's not unusual to see him kicking ass. He's just usually furry with blue skin and blue hair. But so that was great. Awkwafina's hilarious. Here's the thing about her: is she plays the same character in every movie. Every movie,
annoying.
She's the same character. If you find her annoying, then yes. But I mean, if you compare her role in this, her role in Shang-Chi, her role in what was the Ocean's 8, the all-girl remake, which I still think is a pretty good movie. I would rather have seen just an Ocean's sequel, but I mean, I thought it was good. But if you compare, she's kind of like Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is the same thing. He plays the same role in every movie. He plays Tom Cruise. Doesn't matter what movie it is, doesn't matter the plot, doesn't matter the genre. He's just Tom Cruise. He just plays himself. And Awkwafina does that too. But I think she kind of melds into all this because there is good comedy. Nicholas Holt's got some really great comedic timing. Nicolas Cage has always had great comedic timing. He's done comedies before. He's been fantastic in them. But yeah, I mean, she just folds into it very well. You know, the one person I think is actually very, very good is the one who plays the mob boss lady. What was she in?
Oh, yeah.
I have to look it up real quick. She's been in a bunch of shit that to get her into a movie like this is almost a bit of a coup, because you wouldn't expect someone who's been in some of the really highbrow, let me pull up the cast list real quick, some of the highbrow, like almost Oscar-worthy stuff where she's got really heavy dialogue and stuff like that. But let's see. I'm going to take a shot at her name. I know I'm going to screw this up. Shorehe Agedaslu. Wow, I did that.
God bless you.
I know that's not right. Right. I'm dude. I've gotten really good with names since I started doing the YouTube thing. But man, I botched that one so bad. I apologize. But she's been in so much cool stuff. I mean, she was in. Obviously Renfield. She was in. She did some episodes of Archer. She was in The Expanse. She was in Ghostbusters Afterlife. She was actually the voice of Gozer the Gozerian. She was in The Cuban, which is a really good
Oh,
movie.
wow.
Also, I know I've seen her in something else. What was it? I'm looking through real quick. She was in the Punisher TV series. She did some work in Star Trek. I know I've seen her in something else. She was in some episodes of Bones, the TV show, which I love that show. Some episodes of House, the voice in The Simpsons. I mean, she's been in a bunch of stuff, but she was in the Lake House. She was also in an X-Men movie. She was in X-Men: The Last Stand. She was Dr. Kavita Rao, which is the one I was trying to remember. But
yeah, I remember her in that.
Yeah, she was also in one season of 24, which I think is one of the top 5 television shows ever made. But yeah, it's so good, and to get somebody like her with her kind of pedigree in acting was kind of a coup. It's kind of like I remember the guys that did the Lost Boys, the vampire movie that I love so much. That was filmed in my hometown. They were like, we got Diane Wiest, who was fresh off an Oscar nomination for a movie, to come do our stupid vampire movie. That's like a big deal. Probably a big deal to get her as well, because when you get somebody with her history being in some really great productions, that's got to be pretty awesome. But for me, I mean, look, the standout, Nicholas Hoult kind of carries this movie, which is really odd to say because Nicolas Cage is also in this movie, and we're so used to seeing him just jump in front of a camera and just take over things. I mean, in Face Off, he steals that movie. He pretty much gets equal billing and equal time with John Travolta, but that's very much a Nick Cage movie. I mean, he kind of runs that whole thing. And so to have him being so good in the scenes that he's in, but to have Nicholas Hoult really be the center of this film, Nicholas Hoult, I think, did a fine job. He's young. He's already got some big wins under his belt. He's been Beast. He's done this. You know, there's been a lot of talk lately how he's going to be playing Lex Luthor in the upcoming Superman stuff that's coming.
It's been announced. It got announced yesterday or whatever. It's official.
But I mean, he's already got a lot of home runs, you know, in his stat line, and dude, it doesn't seem like he's going to slow down anytime soon. So he's the one that really stands out to me. Also, you felt a little bit of empathy for his character in this. I mean, I did like how they kind of like go back. They give you his backstory a little bit when he's explaining it in the first few minutes of the movie. It was really fun just to watch him on screen. He does a very good job carrying this movie against Nicolas Cage, which is no small feat. I mean, Nicolas Cage has got Oscar nominations. He's been around for 30, 40 years now. He's got huge titles attached to his name, and this guy carried the movie that Nick Cage was in. I mean, you'd expect that when if Nick Cage's career was over, like if he was towards the end, you would maybe not be so surprised by that. But he has had this, renaissance of his career lately. A lot of really cool movies that have come out with him, and he took a back seat to Nicholas Hoult. So and I'm glad he did, because I think this movie actually was better off for it. I think this movie had the amount of Nicolas Cage that it needed to be successful, to be good.
I think it needed more. That was my biggest complaint about this was you got Nick Cage as Dracula, and I mean, obviously, knowing what we know now about the financials, we're probably not getting a sequel. But Nick Cage as Dracula, man, he going through all the transformations that he did, he had like the perfect amount of like classic, Dracula from the Hammer to the Universal versions to like the Nick Cage-isms that he does. I really wanted more Nick Cage. I would love to see the black and white scene with Dracula, like it's the old Lugosi type, Universal film. I wanted more of that. That was so cool, like that version of Dracula from Nick Cage. But I mean, he was not the star of this film, like you said. It was Nicholas Holt's Renfield character, so he wasn't going to get over. He wasn't going to overshadow the star. So good on him, I guess.
Yeah, there is a reason why he did knowingly take a backseat to Nicholas Hoult. I'll go into that a little bit in the trivia. But I mean, let's talk about the plot of the movie. I mean, of course, he's got Nicholas Holt's character of Renfield has to go find all these innocent souls to go feed to his master Dracula. It's interesting to me that they took a side character in the Dracula mythology, in the books, that is, not the real life mythology, of course, but from the Bram Stoker's and all the really old stuff, and kind of built this movie around him. I gotta be honest, until I was doing a little bit of research into this, I didn't realize that Renfield was an actual character in the Dracula lore. I just thought he was a character that was made up for this movie. So I was blown away to find out that that he actually is a character that is in the lore, and they've decided to build the story around him. It was pretty crazy taking that secondary character and making them the center of the film. So did that part of the plot work for you?
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten, like you said, 1,000 different Dracula stories throughout the years. Renfield has always been his familiar, his sidekick. He's just always been there. We never got it from his perspective, his viewpoint. So I thought it was cool to see, this story from the other side. It was played well. I liked that part of the plot. That was really the best part of it for me. Now, the downside of the plot was I did not need this whole corrupt police department tie-in. That part of the film drug everything down for me. I think if they had cut that out, you could have still had Awkwafina as the cop and everything else. But they threw in this whole subplot within that. It just felt distracting and wasn't needed. If they had cut that out, we could have gotten more vampire stuff and more of the Renfield, more of the Nick Cage. But I don't know. It was kind of the plot had a lot extra going, and if they had just simply trimmed some back, I think they would have been better off for it.
Yeah, I can't entirely disagree with that. I mean, the core of the movie, the relationship between Renfield and Dracula and him wanting to get out was great. But I mean, the subplot about her dad being killed by the Lobos, it's like you put it out there as her motivation, but you never really get a payoff on that. I mean, yeah, you kind of do when you get this scene. I mean, it's nice and all because you know that this family is responsible for the death of her father, but at the same time, you spend a couple minutes of dialogue explaining what her motivation is, but you never really explore it. It's one thing to have the corrupt cops as kind of the side plot that's kind of happening in the background, because that's not really a big deal in and of itself. But you set it up as its connection to a whole other storyline about the death of her dad, and you never really do anything with it for the course of the movie, with the exception of a couple pieces of dialogue where they try to hit you with that emotional shit, like you aren't the only one that lost a dad that day when her and her sister are talking in the hallway and stuff. I'm like that scene would mean more to me if you were to explore that part of it more, but you just don't, because there wasn't enough time. It's only like a 90-minute long movie. It's only about an hour and a half.
Right.
So you want to stretch this out to 2 hours and explore that a little bit, fine, but and let that be some of your heavier dialogue, great. But I mean, they just didn't. They put it out there and never really did anything with it. It's like giving me the hamburger patty without the bun. It's like, yeah, you gave me the stuff, but you didn't give me the complete thing. You know what I mean? And the complete thing is what makes it work. So yeah, I agree that they could have trimmed some of the crap out and given me more, either more build up in the first act, or just given me a little bit more, like make some of these fight sequences longer, like the thing in the weird restaurant with the name that I can't remember. This one right here, the one's in the background, actually. Mulates. I don't even know what that means. But I mean, you could have given me an extra fight scene, which was really cool. You could have actually had him find a group of nuns or a bus full of cheerleaders or some shit. And I mean, you could have just had more fun with it instead of setting all that up and not doing anything with it. It just seemed like a lot of air. And when you've only got a 90-minute movie, you don't really want a lot of dead air because it's less time that you have to give to the substantive stuff. But I ultimately I liked it as a whole, but there were some things that I would have maybe nipped out and then readjusted or done differently. I would have either lengthened the movie by about 15 minutes and actually examined some of that stuff, or I would have cut that shit out completely. Like the corrupt cop things. I mean, whatever. Corrupt cops out in the world. I mean, that exists. But
that seemed to be kind of shoved in there as kind of a commentary on, the whole police in 2023 kind of thing. I felt like that was kind of done intentionally.
You got to remember, though, New Orleans is one of the cities that has a history of police corruption. I mean,
oh yeah.
So it kind of makes sense for the history of the area. And let's face it, it's not like the mob hasn't had their or organized crime organizations have not had their fingers in the pie here and there in law enforcement in various places. So I mean, I didn't think it was an indictment of law enforcement. I just thought it was just this group of organized crime people have the police in their back pocket. That's not a new thing to deal with in movies. But yeah, I would have either lengthened the movie by about 15 minutes and added a bit more dialogue between the sisters and really built that up so that really visually pleasing scene at the end where they walk out has a better payoff. It wasn't one of those movies where I was pumping my fist like, yay, the good guys won. I was just like, okay, they got her in the end, which is all they really wanted. It's like I didn't feel like that moment was a big win because we didn't really get enough exposure to that. Or I would have trimmed out the useless stuff and just filled it in with more excitement, more adventure, more blood. Made it a bit more of a horror movie, and like you said, maybe even a bit more Nicolas Cage, but get some more interaction between Dracula and Renfield and build that relationship up a little more, since it is supposed to be the most important relationship in the movie. But that's just my thoughts on the plot. But I mean, and I got to ask Tex, where does this rank in the list of horror comedies for you? Because horror comedy is a touchy genre. It's either really, really awesome or it's really, really terrible. Where does this rank in the list of horror comedies for you?
Well, as far as horror comedies go, Evil Dead 2 will probably forever be number one, because that's just Three Stooges with 20,000 gallons of blood and a chainsaw hand. I really enjoy Cabin in the Woods with Chris Hemsworth. It's not as funny, but it's got its funny moments. Obviously, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That's probably number two. Sorry, my dog is going nuts. It's up there. I don't know where exactly it ranks, but I will say that it is a lot of the humor in this wasn't, I wouldn't say my brand of humor, but it definitely had its moments. I can say that for sure. But, it's maybe bottom 10. It's definitely not a top 5. I can say that.
Yeah, I can't say that I've seen every horror comedy, so take this with a grain of salt. It's the special effects aren't bad. I mean, they're obviously CGI. It's not like good blood. There's a couple, like when
the CGI blood is surprisingly good. I'll say that.
Yeah, but it was obvious. You know what I mean? It was obvious CGI. Yeah. And when it comes to horror, I've said it 100 times, the practical stuff always makes it better. Now, like when Renfield gets his stomach cut open in the fight with that crazy hitman, which I think was hilarious. That stuff was good because it looked like it was more practical. But I mean, whenever they're killing somebody or he's beating someone's ass or going full John Wick, the CGI blood is pretty obvious. The close-up stuff was pretty good. I mean, the story I thought was pretty good. I mean, like I said, I would have organized it a bit differently overall. The plot, the characters I thought were fun. Like I said, I like Awkwafina. I think she's funny when she's used right. There have been times where I'm like, she's not really fitting here. She fits in Shang-Chi. She fits in this. But there have been other times that I've seen her where I'm like, a little too much.
I didn't even realize that she was the same chick from Shang-Chi or whatever. I saw that once, and I forgot most of it by the time I walked out of the theater. I was not into that film, but I kind of forgot. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as recently, I think it's one of the better ones. I mean, I think it's probably better put together than like Killer Clowns in Outer Space, which was a very low budget movie anyway.
Well, but that's a different scale as well too. That's
it is
worlds apart.
Well, decades apart, eras apart, almost.
Right.
It's almost unfair. It's almost unfair to either movie to compare them to one another, But yeah, I mean, of the movies that have come out recently, I would say it's probably one of the better ones to me.
If you haven't seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil, I believe it's on Tubi for free and maybe Netflix. I'm not sure where else. It's basically like I would say the best modern horror comedy. I would highly recommend it. It is one of those movies that I watch multiple times a year. I never get tired of it. Its comedy is much better than this one, and it goes all the way through. But if you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Yeah, but Go down in the comments below. Let us know what you guys think. Do you think this is one of the better horror comedy films of recent memory anyway? Maybe not of all time, but at least of recent memory. I thought it was pretty damn good. And horror comedy is something that it happens in spurts. I mean, I wouldn't consider the Scary Movie franchise horror comedy. I would just consider them comedy. I don't think there's really anything
they're just
scary about them.
Yeah, they're kind of their own genre over there.
Yeah, they're spoofs. I wouldn't consider them horror, but I would put it up there with those at least. But I don't know. Go in the comments and let us know what you guys think. But Tex, I want to ask you, what is we talked about it a little bit earlier. What did you think of them taking this secondary character from this vampire, this Dracula history from all the way back to the Bram Stoker stuff, and making him the center of the film? Because, like I said, I didn't even know that there was a Renfield character in Dracula lore until I was looking into it a little bit for this movie. Do you think that was a bold move, and do you think that ultimately it paid off?
Oh yeah, I would agree. It's very much a bold move, but for the terms that this story needed to be serviceable to work as a film, you had to. Because if you told this film from Dracula's perspective, it wouldn't have worked. It would have just been another average Dracula film. But what we were going from is obviously Renfield being a familiar. He doesn't quite have all of the power that Dracula does. He cares about him. I mean, he serves him. He's his master and all. But it's, for the purposes of it, one thing I will say I didn't like is they played up the narcissist angle too much with Dracula. I'll say that. I wasn't quite a fan of it, playing with the whole therapy angle. Sorry, my dog she's about to go outside and she's not going to like it because it's cold. The narcissist angle that they had going, I didn't like that as much, but for Renfield to explore and kind of become his own thing. There's a lot that they can explore within that Dracula novel, and I like how they did this here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought it was a big chance, but the reason why it worked out so well, in my opinion, was because the casting. If you'd have got some new guy or some young guy who maybe had one or two decent acting jobs under his belt, I don't think it would have worked the same. But Nicholas Hoult, who has actually worked with Nicolas Cage in the past, I think that having some established actors in there for these roles that have a history of some pretty good performances is one of the things that made the whole thing work. Because, like I said, Nicholas Holt's character, the Renfield character, has to carry this film. So if you'd have put anybody opposite Nicolas Cage and they wouldn't have worked out, it would have brought this film way, way down. But like I said, you got Nicholas Hoult, who's really good. So I think that's one of the reasons why it worked out. It makes me interested to see, because this was supposed to be kind of a spin-off of the Monsterverse that Universal was trying to do a while back, but when the Mummy took a shit the way it did and it got smashed, they backed away from the whole Universal Monsterverse, whatever the hell they were going to do. I'm interested what they would have done with this if they'd have tried to make this a bit more serious, which is what they were planning on doing. What do you think that would have looked like if they would have brought a Renfield character into a serious Dracula film?
They could not have, if they were going to go with I think they called that the Dark Universe. I think that's what they had titled that or whatever.
It's dead now.
I know
so.
they had. Right. Yeah. They couldn't have done a Renfield comedy movie under that kind of banner because it wouldn't have worked. It would have had to have been a Nicolas Cage focused and led Dracula film. You know what I'm saying? It would have had to have been more traditional. The comedy would not have worked. Unfortunately for the Mummy, which it had its moments, but overall it sucked, unfortunately, which I love the classic monsters. I would love to see them come back and do their thing, but I don't think we're ever going to get it again, unfortunately. But I know they recently came out with Invisible Man, and it was like a suit that the guy wore, and it was more of a social commentary on bad relationships or something. I don't know. It was weird, but I'd pay today to see a Nick Cage traditional Dracula movie, black and white or not. I don't care, but give me one. You know what I mean?
That would be interesting. You know, he's actually a big fan of Dracula himself, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But I think that it was a big chance. I think it worked out for the purposes of this movie. I don't know that you could take, well, at least this version of Renfield and expand him into a bigger universe. I don't think that would work unless you wanted to make it all kind of comedy, or just kind of like have him show up as a cameo in someone else's monster movie. That would seem a little silly, but yeah, I mean, it was a big move on behalf of them to try to make the secondary character, who most people had probably never heard of unless they were really hardcore Dracula fans, Bram Stoker fans that read all the stuff, probably would have known this character's name to begin with. That was pretty ballsy. Because like I said, I've read a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff. I had never heard the name Renfield in relation to anything Dracula until this movie had come out, and didn't know that he was in Dracula lore until like today. So, you know,
right,
whatever. But
trying to think, there was I can't remember the guy that played Renfield in the original Lugosi Dracula, but it's always been, I mean, part of the lore. And I mean, for them to attack it, I know, I mean, obviously Robert Kirkman of Walking Dead fame, and I think he's also attached to that Invincible show that I think is on Amazon, I believe is where that's seen. He's a comic book guy.
That's actually a really good show. Invincible is actually a really good show.
I haven't watched. Oh, I'll take it back. I've seen part of the first season. I need to go back and rewatch all of it, but who has the time? But the way that they approached Renfield very much felt like a comic book come to life. Like, obviously it's set in, it starts in Transylvania and goes to New Orleans. It had the bright colors, it had the feel of a comic book satire to it, which lent itself to the comedy side. If they had done the more serious approach, I think they would have had to took a more darker. You still could have had the bright glowing neon of New Orleans, but it would have been a little bit different. But I think there's so much good about this. I wish they had highlighted it and not did what they did on some things. But too late now.
Yeah, the movie's made. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. But let's get into a little bit of trivia now. Let's see. Despite a history of turning down non-leading roles in studio films, Nicolas Cage signed up to play Dracula. It was a lifelong dream of his to portray the legendary figure. There's actually a couple pieces of trivia I've got that have to do with him loving the just the Dracula lore and all that. Dr. Nick's now saying, how about Dracula Dead and loving it? Nah, more of a spoof, but not really a horror comedy. It's definitely a spoof.
Yeah. Wasn't that the one with Leslie Nielsen? Nielsen or whatever? Yeah, I thought that was. I can't say I've ever actually seen that movie, to be honest with you.
It was all right. It wasn't as good as The Naked Gun. But here's something we can tease Alex about. Alex from Alex and Gar's Band played Dracula in a high school play of the Bram Stoker version.
Pictures or it didn't happen, Nick. I know you have access to it. Alex has my email. Get it from him and send those directly to me so I can make fun of him. I will send them to Frank, or just send them to Frank. Whatever. Just get me these photos because that would be great to see. So
I bet you he made a pretty cool Dracula. I'm not gonna lie.
I could see it. He's got the voice presence. I could see him doing it. Now, was he more of a Lugosi or a Christopher Lee, or like what kind of Dracula was he? That's the question, though. You know what I'm saying?
True. He actually played it was a spoof. It was just like Dead and Loving It.
Right.
Let's see. He also says, what do you say? And the garbage man played Henry Westrenda.
Sure, I believe you. Whatever that last name is, that's a mouthful. I never got into the plays. I wasn't much of an actor. That's never been my bag. But
he said it was more of a mix of Dracula. He said it was more a mix of Dracula Dead and Loving It and Bram Stoker.
Oh, not a bad Dracula movie. It's not my favorite, but it's not a bad one. So.
Let's see. Nicolas Cage is. Let me get back to the pictures. I'm way off this. His uncle, Francis Ford Coppola, directed Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992. The studio actually wanted Nicolas Cage instead of Keanu Reeves to play Jonathan Harker, but Coppola did not want to work with him after their bad experience on Peggy Sue Got Married in 1986. So they worked together. And
I think I've heard that before. Like I would love, like I said, I mean, I've said it a couple times, but hey, give me as much Nick Cage Dracula as you can. Give me the full black and white thing. I think he would make the perfect Dracula. Like if Rob Zombie ever does a Monsters 2 and they want to do like a Dracula knockoff of some sort, he would fit perfect in that kind of crazy, kooky world. You could pull this Dracula and put it in that world and it would fit perfectly. I think that I will probably never get made because I think it took like 5 years for him to make Monsters. But however I can get more Nick Cage Dracula, I want it. So I'll take it.
I think it would be fun to see him pop up as a cameo as this version of Dracula, like him and Renfield.
Right.
They run into him and Renfield and they're out doing something.
Right.
That would be funny. I think that'd be a fun little throwback.
Well, let's see, I mean, in the older Monsters movies, they went to like England on vacation. What was that, Munster Go Home or whatever that was? So the Munsters go to New Orleans, or whatever you want to do. And oh, hey, there's Dracula over there, chewing on a nun's neck. He's just doing his thing. What's up? What's up, vamp? And they walk away. That'd be kind of fun to see. But,
he steps out of a bus full of cheerleaders. With blood's all in the window. And he's just like, oh, hey guys, how you doing? Don't mind me. Just back here.
You see Renfield just like hunched over, like he's having a panic attack, like he did it again. Oh no, or whatever. It'd be great. Something like that. That'd be kind of fun. So.
Let's see. In an interview with Collider, director Chris McKay admitted that the film was actually intended to serve as a direct sequel to Todd Browning's Dracula from 1931. McKay had also attempted to have the film's trailer and poster refer to this fact, but ultimately it did not pan out. So he was trying to make kind of a spiritual sequel to a 1931 film.
Well, hasn't there? I think there's been a lot of spiritual sequels. Kind of like, I mean, how many sequels has there been to Halloween? Every time they restart a different timeline, they connect to the 74 film, right? Or the 78 film, excuse me. So I think everybody kind of does that when they do a Dracula story. I think that's kind of not a new thing, but kind of a common thing, actually.
Let's see. In the original Bram Stoker novel of Dracula, Renfield is described as being at least the age of 59. Many adaptations, however, depict him as a younger man, and also having a prior connection to Count Dracula before being locked up in the insane asylum that is overlooked by Dr. John Seward. Like I said, I'm gonna have to look up more of Renfield. I'm just not very familiar with the character in the lore of Dracula.
Renfield has been like in most Dracula properties. He is his familiar. I mean, I've seen a couple where they kind of substituted out a name for somebody else, but Renfield it's if Dr. Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, those two go together. If you've got Michael Myers, you've got Dr. Loomis. It's just one of those things that it's part of the canon. It's part of the lore. The characters work together. You're not going to get Robin without Batman. It's just one of those things. This is his Robin. So, I mean, it's been, like I said, it's been there since the beginning. What are you going to do? It's all good.
Yeah, let's see. Chris McKay, like I say, described the film as kind of a quasi-sequel to Universal's 1931 English-language film Dracula, depicting the same characters with Dracula and Renfield 90 years on, with the film's black and white opening scene depicting the beginning of Dracula in 1931, with Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult, respectively, inserted in place of Bela Lugosi and Dwight Fry as Count Dracula.
Dwight Fry, that's who it was. Yeah, that's the name I was trying to think of earlier. Dwight Fry. So, Dwight Fry, he was in quite a few of those Universal monster movies because I'm sure but back then when you signed a movie contract, you signed up with the studio to do like 3 pictures or 5 pictures or whatever. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get $10 million to do the Avengers or whatever. So when these people signed up for Universal, that's why like Lugosi played so many different characters within the Universal monster movies, and all of these other, Lon Chaney played a whole bunch of them. So, you know, Dwight Frye, he was another kind of a classic throwback to an era of Hollywood that doesn't exist anymore. But you know, these are good modern representations of those characters. I will say that. I don't remember the exact age of Dwight Frye whenever he was playing the role back then, but I think Nicholas Hoult does a great job with it. So I'm a fan.
So yeah, the lyrics that were written outside the crime scene on the wall by the door are to the song "A Message to You" by Rudy and the Specials. Never heard of them, but I may have to look it up now.
Okay, I believe you. I know nothing about that band.
Well, I don't know anything about him either. I was reading the lyrics, and I'm like, because she even mentions in the movie that they're lyrics, and I'm like, okay, do I know the song? And I'm sitting there reading the lyrics, like they don't ring a bell to me, but whatever. But when I was reading this, I was like, I may have to look up that song to see if that song's any good.
Now, there is one piece of trivia you may or may not have. I don't know, but I'll go ahead and throw it out there. Did you notice a couple characters from other horror films in this movie? Or not characters, but people from other horror films in this movie?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have a piece of trivia about one of them.
Okay, well, I didn't know if you did or not, but if you didn't, I had something that I'd noticed that, yeah, but yeah, we'll get to it whenever Frank wants to. But
well,
yeah.
I mean, Van Helsing's in the movie. It's very briefly Van Helsing's in the beginning of the movie.
No, I'm talking about other people that came from other famous horror franchises. The blonde lawyer for the Lobo family. Do you recognize? Do you remember who she is?
She looked familiar. I thought she was the blonde FBI agent from Boondock Saints 2, the one that played Dexter's girlfriend that got killed.
I don't remember Boondock Saints 2, but if you remember Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 Stretch, she was the DJ from Texas Chainsaw 2, the blonde lawyer in that film, Carolyn Williams. And the other one that I'm willing to, I'd bet a paycheck you didn't notice this one, but Jenna Cannell from Terrifier, she played Tara, the girl in the skeleton costume. Yeah. She's in this movie as well. She's in the therapy group. She's the girl with short, dark hair, wearing like the greenish brown jacket and the black clothing.
The one that's always getting interrupted. Is she the one that's always getting interrupted?
Yes, that is Tara.
I thought I looked at her face and I was like, she's familiar to me. I can't figure out where I've seen her before.
Yeah, she's the girl that's wearing the skeleton costume in Terrifier 1 that Art is chasing down before Victoria comes in and gets mangled and looks like chewed up pasta, chewed up ravioli. So there is a couple horror, Easter eggs within this film that only the deep horror nerd will probably pick up. But they left you a couple in there to find. So that's always fun. I look for stuff like that in movies. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, there's another one in there that might surprise you at the beginning of the film, but I'll get to it in just a second. Another interesting thing that I saw, the film is set in New Orleans, of course. This is where Nicolas Cage already has a pyramid-shaped tomb waiting for him in St. Louis Cemetery No. 1. Very weird.
Not just that. He owns, I don't know if he still owns it or not, but I know he used to own the Madame Lalaurie house down there in New Orleans. Yeah. Like that was one of the things that he owned. I don't know. I know he had some money troubles, over time. Because he had castles or something, but he may or may not still own that. But another little Easter egg about Nick Cage and his. I don't know if you've ever been to New Orleans or not, but it's a lot of fun down there. I've always wanted to do Halloween in New Orleans because I just think that'd be great, but I haven't gotten to it yet. So.
I always want to go to Mardi Gras just to see. I've been there once, but now I don't know.
Oh boy, I've been twice. I can't remember much of it, but I know I had fun because I saw the pictures. That's all I'll say. But
hopefully nobody else sees the pictures, but he's seen the pictures.
Oh no, those were destroyed a long time ago. Those were burned. There you go.
See, when Dracula attempts to kill the priest, a blue ring of fire appears to stop him. In the novel, Dracula, as Renfield is being taken to the castle Dracula, blue rings of fire appear sporadically. The carriage driver stops at each of these rings and places stones at each one, believing there was gold buried at each spot. So a deep cut into the Dracula lore. They kind of redid them a little bit for this movie, it looks like.
One thing I did notice when they were in that at the end at the fight scene, and they were trying to trap Dracula in that pentagram on the ground in the blue flame or whatever. If you go back and watch it from shot to shot, they missed it a couple times whenever it's supposed to be there. So I don't know if they just used the wrong frames or whatever they did, but it's kind of one of the goofs that that in their editing that they messed up on, but just one of the things I picked out.
Let's see. Renfield of the original story, like I said, was 59 years old when he fell under Dracula's power. This version of Renfield appears much younger, as Nicholas Hoult was 33 during filming. Justified as the opening reveals the film to be taking cues from the classic 1931 film Dracula, where Renfield was played by the similarly aged Dwight Frye. So they even managed to keep some kind of time continuity in this, despite the jump of 80-something years.
Yeah, for this to be the way that they handled the representations of Renfield and Dracula from the 30s till now, I thought was done very well. Obviously, when you get, we see 3 or 4 different versions of Dracula amongst the time of the film, from like prime Dracula to where he looks like he's just a pile of bones. We get, like I said, different versions of him, which shout out to the makeup department. One thing I was reading about this before we went live, apparently Nick Cage had to wear 20 pounds of makeup to be Dracula in this film. I couldn't imagine wearing that much crap. I think they said it was like 8 or 9 hours of time to just become that character. So, they went hardcore with it. And there's different, it's like they pulled from different versions of Dracula to make this version of Dracula as well. Like, he's kind of got the, I can't remember the old Universal film, The Madman of London or something, teeth. Of course, he looks, he's kind of like a blend of 3 or 4 from everything from Lugosi to Christopher Lee's to, like I said, there's multiple versions represented. I like how they showed them from past to present. I thought that was done well.
Yeah, there's a couple really cool looks, especially this one right here. Obviously, in the beginning of the film, Nicolas Cage is pretty mangled because he's still trying to grow back from the exposure to the sun early. But there's a couple spots in this film where the makeup is really, really cool. You can still tell it's Nicolas Cage, but he's looking really grizzled and shitty, kind of like this shot right here. So, this is some pretty good makeup stuff. It was pretty impressive. But
shout out to the makeup guys. They killed it, man.
No doubt. But William Ragsdale, who plays the elderly priest in the beginning of the movie, is best known for playing Charlie Brewster in the Fright Night films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I had a picture of that guy, but I looked at him and I was like, he looks kind of familiar. I don't know where I saw him from, and I just happened to catch this little tidbit on IMDb.
I need to go back and rewatch the Fright Nights. The remake with Colin Farrell, so it's not bad as far as remakes go, but I need to go back and rewatch those. I'm going to schedule out. I kind of do like monthly viewing things or whatever. I might give a month to the Fright Night franchise. I enjoyed, especially that first one. That first one's an 80s classic. But, it's another good one to watch.
Yeah, this is the one that, oh God, it hurts. It hurts to think about. Makeup artist Christine Tinsley revealed that they had to shave Nicolas Cage's real teeth to fit the customized Dracula dentures, which were 3D printed. I honestly, I would draw the line. I would draw the line right there. I wouldn't be able to.
I don't know how much he got paid for this movie, but it wasn't enough to shave your teeth down. That is nut. Like, I don't know what. Hopefully Nicolas Cage. I I don't know if you've ever seen Johnny Depp's real teeth, but my lord, those are horrible looking. They just Google that; it'll give you nightmares. But I don't know what Nicolas Cage's chompers look like in real life, but I'm sure he's got a good dental plan thanks to that new, agreement the actors just made with the studio. So he probably got it fixed right after. So
yeah, but I mean, come on, shaving.
probably
Look, it's not like trimming your fingernails. That shit doesn't grow back. It's one thing to shave your head like Natalie Portman did for V for Vendetta. It's gonna grow back, but it's like your teeth don't grow back. You shave them, they're just gone. It's like
he got more money for that. Yeah, they paid him extra for that.
I don't know if there is an amount of money that would make me be okay with that.
Whenever you're as broke as Nicolas Cage was at one point, he probably thought, "Hey, a paycheck." I mean, how many bad C-list movies has Nicolas Cage been in over the years that went straight to Tubi streaming services just because it was a paycheck?
Straight to the Walmart DVD bin.
It went. There are so many movies he's done that went right to the clearance section that you've never heard of before. Like, if you go through his acting credits, he's got hundreds of them of films you've never seen. He's kind of like Steven Seagal that way. They'll just take anything. If you've got a camera and $5, you can hire him for a movie. So, hey, good on him.
I'll throw $200 to the IRS for you if you do a cameo on my YouTube channel. That's what I do. I'll call it and be like, "Hey, let me interview you for 15 minutes. Let me ask you like 2-3 questions. I'll put $200 on your tax bill. What do you say?"
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When you're as broke as he got, there's no job too little. It's all a wash at the end of the day.
Supposedly both Nicholas Hoult and Nicolas Cage actually ate bugs, although the cockroaches were reportedly candy.
I remember seeing Nicolas Cage on one of those morning shows when this was prior to this coming out this year, and they showed him eating bugs. I think it was that Good Morning America with Michael Strahan or whatever. It was one of those kind of shows I saw him on, and he was eating bugs there. Now they could have been stunt bugs, they could have been worked, but I saw him doing it. So I don't know. I mean, I've ate bugs before. I was a kid once. I think we've all done it. I don't do it as an adult. So.
I did have a lollipop with a scorpion in it once.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
I forget where I got it. I think it's New Mexico or something like that.
I think the weirdest one, I was like 6 and I ate a live grasshopper. I felt it jumping as I was swallowing. It was really odd, but I was an idiot back then. What are you gonna do?
I've had chocolate covered ants.
Well, I've had ants, like if you've ever been to a picnic and you don't realize ants crawled on your hamburger or something and you bit into it. Like, I've had ants before, but never chocolate covered. I've never had chocolate covered bugs before. I would actually try that. Surprisingly.
I can honestly tell you that all I tasted was a chocolate. So it's possible there was no ants in it at all, and somebody was bullshitting me. But I mean, I was just like, chocolate ants, sure, I'll give it a go. I was probably like 11 or 12. I was like,
somebody just gave you a milk dud. Somebody just gave you a milk dud and wanted to watch you squirm a little bit. Yeah, it could have been a raisinette or something.
Yeah, could have been a raisinette for all.
I mean, the ants, like, you can't even put your fingers together and get small enough to get the width of an ant, unless it's one of those like giant red ones or something. But I guess it's protein if you're ever out in the woods and you're starving. It's all good.
They tell you to eat bugs. Fucking what's his name? Bill Gates is trying to get us to eat crickets. So maybe this movie is just part of his grand scheme.
Well, he has steak. I don't think so, Bill Gates.
Yeah. The movie does pay homage to multiple different portrayals of Dracula over the years. In one of the opening scenes depicting Dracula and Renfield's history, both characters are dressed and filmed in the style of Bela Lugosi's Dracula movies. Furthermore, during this scene, Cage's Dracula says the line, "I never drink wine," which originated from Todd Browning's Dracula in 1931 and was referenced in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992.
Wow. They went deep on that one. I didn't even pick that up.
I never drink wine. I knew I had heard that line somewhere. Maybe I just heard it because it's a famous quote or something like that. I wouldn't have put it with a Dracula movie at any point in history. That line kind of stuck out to me. It's said kind of in passing in this movie. I don't think they gave it enough emphasis to make it like a good Easter egg. But yeah, I did notice in the initial shots though how there was a lot of, and I wish I managed to get a screen grab of it. There was a lot of the black and white shots of Nicolas Cage doing the Bela Lugosi thing, and the background and everything of him in the castle was actually the same thing. As a matter of fact, the castle that they used in the opening sequences was the same castle that was used in I'm drawing a blank. One of the old horror movies from the 40s. Drawing a blank in the name. I don't know if it was a Dracula movie, but
one of the old Universal movies.
I think so.
Oh, there's no tell. I mean, it could have been. I mean, Castle Frankenstein. I mean, there was a lot of old movies that back then that they were doing castles in.
Let me try to figure out where it was at, because trivia here, I think. But yeah, I thought it was interesting because they said it was used. Couple of Dracula. Let's see, quasi sequel.
Now, was it an actual castle that they filmed in, or did they recreate it?
I can't remember exactly. So,
because I know, I mean, like when we reviewed Nosferatu, that castle is still standing. That was part of the trivia that you had for that film.
Yeah,
like it's still over there. It wouldn't surprise me if they did went to some old castle, or maybe even one of the castles that Nick Cage may happen to own or something. I don't know. That could be one of them. I'm not sure.
Oh, I missed this one. In the beginning, when the curtains are pulled down to spill sunlight on Dracula, Nicolas Cage intentionally mimics Max Schreck's death by sunlight pose in the 1922 Nosferatu, even though the camera angle makes it harder to spot.
Oh,
yeah. I kind of got that when I watched it. It wasn't exactly the same, but I did think it was kind of it wasn't like a shot-for-shot remake. But I thought it was interesting.
Except for the, obviously Nick Cage killing people Dracula style. I think my favorite thing, or my favorite shot of him in this movie, is when he looks like classic Lugosi Dracula, and the light is just on his eyes. Like everything else is in shadow, and they highlight his eyes like they did in the classic Dracula film. I love that shot. I wish we could have gotten a couple more of those, because that really plays well. I thought that was a lot of fun. Like I said, I just wanted more Nick Cage Dracula in this movie. It was I almost wish they'd go back and do the serious version with Cage, but considering this thing was a flop, I doubt they ever do it, unfortunately. But it's a business, not a pleasure, right? So.
I cannot find on here where it said the castle was anything about the castle. Maybe I had read it in Wikipedia or something like that, so who the hell knows if it's even true. But let's see. One more piece of trivia before we start to close this out is in the original novel, and most adaptations following it, one of Dracula's abilities is controlling animals. He is often associated with wolves in particular. In the climax of the film, Dracula teams up with the Lobo family and turns most of them into his familiars. Lobo is Spanish for wolf.
Wow. I didn't even put that together.
I didn't either until I read that. I was like, oh, yeah. Because it's like, I don't know, I hear stuff like Lobo and things like that, and I know what it means in Spanish. I just don't ever think about it that often. So it didn't occur to me. But yeah, that is pretty cool. Yeah.
I know. I mean, obviously, the whole Dracula turns into a bat. We've seen him vanish into smoke before. Like if you watch the, I believe, Untold, the film that came out maybe 10 years ago or so, we kind of see he kind of becomes like a cloud kind of thing. So they've kind of gone back to the more traditional what powers does Dracula have kind of thing. I will say whenever what's that? Oh, the Lobo kid's name, Ben Schwartz, the actor that plays him. Whenever he becomes a familiar for Dracula and he's battling Renfield, that was one of the funnier parts of the movie that I actually did enjoy because that guy's just a prick. You automatically hate that guy, and you just want to see him get his head ripped off. But you know,
I thought it was really out of place, even though I really enjoyed it. Like how it goes into that X-ray of what's happening inside his body as Renfield's kicking him in the stomach. I don't know if you remember the Jet Li movie. Not X Wounds. It was called Romeo Must Die. Remember Romeo Must Die with Jet Li and Aaliyah?
I don't think I ever saw that.
Back in the late 90s, right around 2000. Well, one of the big things about that movie is during a couple of the fight scenes, as when Jet Li is fighting people, it does exactly that. He'll like go to punch somebody and it shows this like 3D X-ray thing. So when he punches this guy in the chest, it'll have kind of that same effect where it'll go and you'll see bones breaking for like a couple seconds on screen, and then the guy fly back. That's what it reminded me of. Was what they had done in that movie with Jet Li. What's the name of it again? Romeo Must Die. Yeah, which is a really fun action, like kung fu action movie. But yeah, it kind of reminded me of that. I just thought that was hilarious. It shows all the bones breaking, and then it shows like the shit coming out of his ass and the blood coming out of his mouth, like all in X-ray vision. And I was like, that's pretty fucking wild.
I thought, well, see, that shot. It reminded me of two things. Number one, a comic book, because Robert Kirkman, he was a comic book guy before he was in movies and television. But the second thing it reminded me of was a fatality on Mortal Kombat. Fatality, finish him. It very much was a similar callback to that as well. I don't know how much of if it like the Jet Li callback. I've never seen that film. I don't think. I don't think. I know I haven't seen many Jet Li movies, but no, it was like I said. There was a lot of comic booky type stuff, which looked good. Like I said, I like the color palette. This film is very appeasing on the eye. And especially coming from that black and white to the almost Technicolor kind of at the end in New Orleans. But yeah, I thought it worked well. I thought it looked cool.
Yeah, I especially love in Romeo Must Die. There's like Jet Li he got sucked into this cage match thing. He didn't really want to like fight any of these guys, but he just signed up for it just to get in there so he could get answers for whatever he was looking for. And of course, he gets sucked into actually fighting. And so while he's beating the shit out of like 10 different guys in traditional Jet Li fashion, he takes his hand and he goes like this and grabs the guy's sternum. So he like reaches in, grabs his sternum, and then just rips him this way and throws him against the cage. That is like every time, dude, just thinking that hurts. Oh my God, it sucks. It's like, because I've got that movie on DVD, and every time I watch that movie, I see this part, and I'm just like, oh, it just looks so bad.
You start clutching your pearls like a little old woman watching it.
Yeah, it's like, thank God that's not one of the scenes that they go into that X-ray vision thing on. Because I was like, oh, God, just watching it happen like that in real time. And it shows you him like push in, grab the sternum, and then pull that way and throw the guy in the cage. It was like, oh, I would rather just die than feel that. Just snap my neck right now. I'm done. I'm checking out. I don't want to feel that.
Just kill me. Just get it over with.
That's great Jet Li stuff, though. So go check out some Jet Li. That's a great movie. And it was Aaliyah, who was absolutely beautiful. God, I was in love with her back in the day. But we're going to go ahead and close it out there. I mean, no Jeremy today, so we're not going to be able to get the full run out of this review that I was hoping to get. But I think we broke down the movie for you pretty well. Again, this is available for free on. It's available for free on Amazon, and I think it's on one of the other streamers too. I forget. So you can go find this to watch free on Amazon Prime if you have a subscription there, or go find it somewhere. It's probably going to be on Tubi at some point in the next couple weeks anyway. But we'll start to get out of here now. Thanks to my friend, the Shape of Lone Star State, my man Tex. Close it out for me. Give me your final thoughts on Renfield.
You should see this movie just to see Nick Cage as Dracula. Even if you don't like the rest of the film, think of it what you will. Like I said, there's a good third of this film that I think they should have thrown away and forgotten about. I would still if anybody came up, hey, Tex, you want to watch Renfield? Hell yes, I do. Nick Cage is he's just awesome. He's one of those guys. So, it's shot well. The action scenes are very, especially towards the end, it's very like the Netflix Daredevil kind of fight scenes, kind of the way it's got a very similar feel to that. If you're a John Wick fan, you'll like this movie. It's got a little something for everybody. There is practical gore with the CGI, but ultimately it works because you kind of know what you're watching. So, yeah, if you haven't seen this, it's a fun movie not to watch. I'd say check it out.
Yeah, for me, I mean, the cast is really good. I like pretty much everybody. I mean, and Nicolas Cage. Just Nicolas Cage is really all you need to know. I mean, the guy, he's been in some shitty movies, but he's always been good. So Nicolas Cage doing Nicolas Cage things. It is an interesting take on the Dracula mythology, not the vampire mythology, but the Dracula mythology in particular. It is kind of a weird, spoofy spiritual sequel to the original stuff from like the 30s. I prefer to kind of view this on in kind of its own bubble, and it's kind of in a vacuum. So
it's better that way.
Yeah, I say it's better off that way. But it's actually, one of the things I forgot to mention earlier is it's actually kind of got the perfect setting in New Orleans, because New Orleans is a place that lends itself very. I mean, it's got its own weird history anyway. Things like that. So the macabre, the death, the way they approach death down in New Orleans, how it's celebrated, not mourned. It's a very weird place anyway. So it was actually set in a perfect place.
A lot of fun.
The setting is very much a character at times in this movie, not as much as I would have liked, but I mean the city of New Orleans is actually very much a character in this movie as well. Loaded with good acting. Dialogue could have been a little better in spots. Like Tex said, the fight scenes are all pretty well choreographed. They look great. They're fun to watch. Nicholas Hoult really does a great job carrying this movie. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of hope there's a sequel. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but
I highly doubt it.
Honestly, it's almost like they were teasing it at the end when he's talking about, we beat him, we chopped him up and threw him in the sewer drain or whatever. And even Nicholas Holt's narration says, we're not sure if that's going to stop him. He may come back, but it won't be for a long time from now. It felt like even they were setting up kind of, maybe we are, maybe we aren't, but we're going to leave this door open just in case Nicolas Cage says, hey, you know what I want to do? I want to make another Renfield movie. And we're like, okay, Nick, here's $50 million to go make another one. I'm interested to see what this movie makes on secondary media, because a lot of people don't understand that secondary media isn't always factored into it's not ever factored into the box office take of a film. But it is factored into how much the movie makes overall. It's like you look at a movie like Contact with Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey. That movie made like $12 at the theaters. It was largely a financial complete failure. But once it got to home video, that movie took off. That movie blew up, and it got a second life. And that's where it made most of its money. And it ended up turning a profit just in secondary media and home media. So when it hit video and DVD, that's when people found that movie, and it really gave it legs. They just never saw it when it was in theaters. I don't know if it got lost in a bunch of other big movies that were coming out, or they didn't market it well, which is the problem with a lot of movies these days. But I'm interested to see what it does, how much the secondary media has had on the effect of the profitability of the film. I would imagine that it's probably at least broke even at the end of the day. I mean, that's not exactly a good thing, but I mean, it didn't lose money. And maybe they're looking at it like, maybe if we marketed it better. I mean, the marketing for this movie wasn't bad, but it didn't work out very well because nobody went and saw it in theaters, and it's right now a financial loss. So,
if this had been released in October, it would have done a lot better. They should not have released the movie when they did. This isn't a Halloween movie by any sense of the word. But when you throw in the Dracula, the New Orleans setting, the spooky kind of vibes, all the blood, this would have killed it in October, I think. And I don't know why they released it when they did, but
well, a lot of it's release schedule. I mean, because what's some of the stuff that came out around Halloween this year? I mean, it was only a month ago. You probably remember a little bit better than I do. But I mean, we've had
you had Saw, Exorcist, Five Nights at Freddy's. There was a couple minor horror things that came out, but I still say Nick Cage Dracula against. I mean, we know Exorcist didn't make a lot of money, so there's still a lot of people that would have went to go see a horror film, and And Saw X was released technically in September. So, I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's is a completely different audience. So, when you think about it, for the October battle and money, your only competition was Exorcist. And by the time that came out, nobody wanted to see it. So, I still say October, this past October, it could have did better. But, too late now.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I feel like this is a movie that would have done a lot better if you'd have released it like late September and kind of just let it sit in theaters for Halloween where everybody's looking for that kind of stuff. I mean, you might not have done gangbusters, it might not have made $1 billion, but I think it would have been a much better fit for like the scary season.
Well, not just that, but even titling it Renfield, I think hurt it because yes, your horror fan's going to know who Renfield is. But even like you said, you know stuff about movies. You know the Dracula. You didn't realize how deep Renfield went. If this had Dracula in the name somewhere, I think that could have affected the budget as well, or the profit as well. Because if you see Dracula, you're more likely to go to see it than, oh, what's Renfield about? I don't know. Whatever. We'll just watch something at home. And, too late. So.
Yeah, they could have called it Renfield, Dracula's assistant or something. I mean, just put Dracula in the subtitle.
Have Dracula on the marquee. You need that name there. I mean, it's part of it. It's, it's just like with Halloween. It's the same reason Halloween is big and bold letters. It might have a subtitle underneath, but the name's got to be there. So they took a chance, and I mean, they didn't make much money, so too bad.
They shot their shot, they missed on the marketing anyway. But yeah, I think it's a fun movie. I think you guys should give it a go. Like I said, the comedy is definitely there. The horror, not so much, but I'll forgive this movie because I don't think that was the focus of this film to begin with. I think Dracula, the Dracula is
more action than horror.
It's a bit of a misnomer to call this a Dracula movie. Yeah, the character Dracula's in it, and it's a pretty good incarnation of the character, but it's not the focus of what this movie is. It's not the core of the movie. It's Renfield, his fun little quirky relationship with Awkwafina, him trying to get out of his toxic relationship. Let's all go to therapy now. But
when that therapist got killed, I loved it so much, dude. That made me so happy to watch that pussy just get ripped apart. I was like, thank you, God.
Look, how in the hell did he just use Dracula's blood to bring these guys back to life? I mean, they were mangled. He was like ripping throats out and shit, and it's like what, pouring a little bit of blood on them is just going to bring them back to life. Are they vampires now too? Are they familiars of Dracula now? I need to know how this works because
there's your sequel right there. Dracula has a whole group of SJWs as familiars, and they're just haunting New Orleans. That's the new movie right there. You just laid out the plot line. I love it. I'm there for it.
Did he kill all the familiars in the Lobo family? I mean, there's got to be at least one of them left. I mean,
right?
I don't know. Was the woman? Was she a familiar? Because she walks right out of there. We don't know if she's got any special powers or not. It never really specifies.
Here's the thing. Dracula's already dead. How do you kill something that's already dead? Does he ever fully go away from now on, or does he just pop up every now and then? It's just, I would love to see more Nick Cage Dracula and less of the comedic tone, and do it a little like you can be snarky without being comedic, but we'll see if it happens. I'm not betting on it though.
Yeah. But go down the console. Let us know what you guys thought of Renfield. Sorry I didn't bother putting a poll in the chat today, but like I said, I had to throw this together really fast since things had to get kind of cut. But thank you to my shape from the Lone Star State, my man Tex. Where can the folks at home find you on the internet, my friend?
Right here, whenever we're doing the show. Hopefully we're here tomorrow to talk about the fantasy football because the league that I created for us was shook up majorly after this past week's events in the league, and there's a lot to break down, and there's obviously there's so many things we can talk about football injury wise, or there's a laundry list of topics, but my recommendation for the week, go see Thanksgiving. It's in theaters. It's made by Eli Roth. It feels like a 90s slasher, but it looks like a 2000s remake of the 80s era. It's a lot of fun. It's only like an hour 45. It's not a long movie. Interesting kills, new characters. go support this movie. It's worth going out of your way to see. And hey, it's a Thanksgiving slasher. It's Eli Roth finally bringing that fake trailer that he made in the Grindhouse movie to life 16 years later. Like it's kind of cool to see it come to fruition. So go check out Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I have heard nothing but good things about that movie. I'm eager to go give it a watch.
It's a lot of fun.
I'm hoping to watch it at some point by the end of this weekend. But yeah, I've heard nothing but good things. Nick from Lost River Drive-In, he was just like, dude, this movie's a lot of fun. You're going to dig it. He's like, you love that classic slasher shit. You're going to love this movie. It's fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. But
very creative kills. That's all I'll say. Very creative kills, one involving a trampoline that I think you'll find interesting. So go check it out.
Does it have one of those electric carving knives? Did they use those on somebody? Because you'd have to. I mean, that would be a kill. I'd look at it in a Thanksgiving-based horror movie and be like, that
without spoiling, there is a very good use of an electric carving knife that one poor SOB feels, and it's pretty rewarding of a kill. I'll say that. And somebody finally brought the Black Friday shopping crowds to a horror film. The opening of this movie is tremendous. I cannot applaud. It's kind of slow to start to get there, but once the blood starts flowing, buddy, oh man, it's a lot of fun. So just go see Thanksgiving. Go see it.
Like Tex said, we will be here tomorrow talking football. We may have the Rose and Marcus on with us tomorrow. Marcus said he might be able to pop on. So there's going to be plenty of football to talk. Yeah, some big injuries in the NFL, some big games to break down. Obviously, last night's game, the Super Bowl rematch between the Eagles and the
I was so nervous about that game.
Yeah, that game. I watched the highlights of that game this morning before I left for work, and it must have been something to watch live because the highlights kind of had me sitting at the edge of my seat trying to figure out what the hell's going to happen. But there's plenty of football to talk, and we'll talk about fantasy football, how we're doing in our leagues. Probably won't be a stream on Thursday. It is Thanksgiving Day after all, so I figured I'd let all these guys go home and spend time with their families. I mean, since that's what's important to them and all. But we will pick the streaming schedule back up again next week. I have no idea what I have to look at my schedule to see what we're doing. We are going to be doing JFK at some point because we can't get through the month of November without talking a little bit of John Kennedy. I mean, every year this time of year, there's always documentaries on lots of channels and all kinds of videos going up about everything from what happened that day to the conspiracy theories to whatever.
I can't wait for the conspiracy
So we'll touch
theory
base
talk.
on that as well by reviewing the Oliver Stone classic JFK, his little conspiracy theorist wet dream, but whatever you might think of what he thinks of it all. It's a very entertaining movie. So we'll be talking about that. And I think Alex from Alex and the Garbage Man wanted to get in on that too, so hopefully he'll be able to join us. Thanks you guys for coming out again. Sorry for the shorter stream. Didn't have Jeremy here to suck all the air out of the room and talk endlessly, but I could have had it could have gotten with us today. But we will see you guys next week. Have a great Thanksgiving. Again, the charity stream is planned for New Year's Eve. So plan on going late with us New Year's Eve so that we can raise some money for the Abandoned Pet Project. We will see you guys later on. Until then, adios.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I will side with you on this. There could have been more boobs in this movie.
I need nudity. Nudity is important in horror. I mean, it's like peanut butter and jelly. Come on, man. You got to have it.